box breathing.
This is Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slekar and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
Yeah, there it is. Thursday night, Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. Johnny Lupinacci, how are you, my friend?
Doing well, Tim, doing well. You know, back on campus. It's not often in the off season, I call it, that I'm actually on campus because, you know, like most of our colleges around the country, they kind of, the students go away and the professors, we kind of tie off loose ends. But, you know, we have an MIT program that goes for 1 year. That's a master in teaching, kind of like an alternate pathway to teaching. But they, you know, they've spent the last year interning in classrooms, you know, shadowing teachers, taking courses. They finished today on campus. So we have a big event where they share their teacher inquiry projects, the kind of teaching that they hope to be doing in the fall when they're in their own classroom. So it's a celebratory day here on campus, and it's a great Thursday because I'm on the air with you, Tim, and we got a sweet guest we're going to get to. But before we get to it,
I was just thinking, though, too, you're talking about the students. Boy, too bad they didn't have a Minocqua Brewing tap room in the area, because you know what? Busted Pencils is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sued the state of Wisconsin to end its parasitic voucher system that hurts public schools. Minocqua Brewing Company is making Wisconsin great again, one beer at a time. Check out MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to see where you can buy their progressive beer. Yeah, Johnny, those MIT students, you know, get that. I don't know if they're going to make that trip, but, you know, gotta love Minocqua Brewing Tap Room in Madison, bringing it to us. Yeah, great guest, Johnny. I want to start though before we introduce our guest, though, because he you know, let's tease it. Profound question. We talk about this a lot on the show. What does learning look like? Boy, we got some great things. But he was a principal at all K-12 levels, including a prison school district coach. He was a distance learning team lead and English teacher, national award-winning former school teacher. He is the creator of the BE Podcast Network, the best educational podcast network out there. He's also the author of How to Be a Transformative Principal and School X, How Principals Can Design a Transformative School Experience for the people right in front of them. He also advises school leaders across the country. Welcome to Busted Pencils, Jethro Jones. How are you, Jethro?
Oh, man, I am honored to be here and so stoked to nerd out with you guys. This is
Nerd out? Wait a minute. Hold on. I didn't know I fell into that camp nowadays.
I think if you do a daily podcast about education, you are a nerd.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you, Jethro. I don't know about that denial you're in, Tim.
No kidding. No kidding.
It's a river in Egypt, you know, one of those things, as they say. No, Jethro, I mean, great stuff. A lot of work that you've been doing. I mean, lots of experiences. You know, before we get even into the question of what does learning look like, though, you know, give you a chance. The BE Education Podcast Network. Give us just a little taste. What's that all about?
Yeah, you know, we think that education is vital to our success as a nation and as a world. And so about a year and a half ago, I got together with Ross Romano, who's been a friend for a long time. And we said, how can we make podcasts that there's a podcast for everybody anywhere they're at in education? And so we've got about 40 shows on that network. Some of them are really focused on things like my podcast, Transformative Principles, really focused on school principals. The Authority podcast is really focused on interviewing book authors. And we've got a whole bunch of other ones. One that you might be interested in is Morning Motivation for Educators. Short 5-minute episodes to get you inspired and find something positive in your day, all geared towards educators, and anybody can contribute to that. So anybody who wants to can share a message with educators if they want to. morningmotivationedu.com. People can go check that out. That one I think is great because we all need more inspiration and support.
Absolutely. Motivation, inspiration. It's always there. And in fact, if you're inspired, give us a call, 855-752-4842 for our guest, Jethro Jones. The question is, and if you have an answer already, what does learning look like? Jethro has really done, Johnny, the graphic that he put together here. So anybody who, had the ability to see some of the promos I was putting out all day today on social media can look at it. And I'll do my best as a description because Jethro, you kind of sent it to me when we were doing a pre-interview. And so, image number one, what people and what schools think learning looks like is a semi-straight line that continually goes forward and continually grows. So in other words, guess what? What happens to learning? Every day you're in school, you learn a little bit more and you learn a little bit more and you learn a little bit more, always accumulating, always getting better. Okay. Right. You think how many people go, oh yeah, that sounds right. That sounds reasonable. Then what learning really looks like, which is you start down here, you start moving up a little bit, and all of a sudden you start squiggling and you move to the left, you move to the right, you move backwards, you move forward, you come around, you kind of put together what looks like a lot of chaos. You might possibly towards the end move in that other direction. However, during all that time, there's always the possibility that something else might happen and you might learn something totally different. I don't know, Jethro, what do you think? Is that a pretty good verbal description?
Yeah, that was good. And sometimes when you're just doing audio and you can't see it, then that's what happens. If you go to my Twitter account, that one is up towards the top, and I'll leave links and other things in there as well. But this idea that learning is a straight line and that everything just scaffolds on top of each other and everything is in this like nice, neat curriculum scope and sequence, it's a bunch of baloney. And we as educators, we miss the boat when we think that that's what it's like, because it's not really like that. Everybody learns individually and according to their own experiences. That's the key takeaway.
So let me put this question though too, and because Johnny, you answer this too. This is for all of us. So Jethro, you are going to also make this proclamation, this declaration that learning is a messy, non-linear. How many years have you been in this business, teaching and learning, educating, leading?
Officially, I got my first teaching job in 2006,
Okay.
right after my daughter was born. So she's 18 now and graduating. And so I've been teaching for 18 years or educating. But before that, I've spent time on a mission in Russia teaching. I've done a lot of different things to help people learn. And I've been doing my podcast for over a decade, and I call that learning in dog years. So I got a lot of thoughts about how this stuff works.
Okay, so lots of experience. Johnny Lupinacci, how long you been at this gig?
This current one, man, I don't know, man.
No, man, this whole idea,
weeks,
teaching
2,
and
3
learning.
weeks. No, man. I mean, I was back
An
teaching
educated educator.
Yeah, I think my first year in the classroom was early 2000s, 2001, 2002. I mean, I started as, high school math teacher, as green as they could be, man, both interested in the environment and, social activism and teaching math in Detroit, and did that. And I've been working with teacher education since, I don't even know, maybe 2008 or so. So just a couple decades of it, and being in and out of different contexts, alternative schools, traditional schools. We talk sometimes here about Detroit schools and, the charterization and the privatization versus the public schools, all that stuff. So it's been a blast, and I get to work with so many future teachers, so many school leaders out there. Most recently, the last 10 years, I've been here in Washington, actually kind of close to Jethro. We just found that out live for listeners out there. Jethro and I, we don't live too far from each other. So this is one of those cool moments where, we could be anywhere on the podcast or radio show together, but we actually can meet face to face too and hang out. And, we're gonna. So we've been at it for a minute now, Tim.
Oh yeah, you've been at it. So man, I'm kind of a little bit concerned about when when my first classroom, 1990. 1990. I was a second grade teacher in 1990. I know. You're like, wait a minute, what were you, 2? Yeah, I know. No, I don't. No, yeah, 1990. I've been at this, thing, second grade for a few years, fifth grade for a few years, seventh and eighth grade, in rural Pennsylvania, downtown Baltimore, Maryland, then teacher education, like you said, Johnny, at State University of New York, worked at Penn State for 10 years, all the way up in Wisconsin, Madison. So what I wanted to do out there is in case anybody was going like, well, who are these dudes to be talking about learning and what learning looks like? Just put out there a little bit of the educated educators talking education credentials out there. 855-752-4842. That's what it is. Yeah, I think we might have a little bit to say. However, that doesn't stop you from having what you want to say. Call us, come on in, talk about it. What does learning look like? Okay, so Jethro, before we get deep into this, where we're really going to go, when did it come clear to you? Because I got to assume that at some point, learning to be a teacher, though, the kind of continuous, always learning, always growing kind of model, when did you start to question that?
Oh, ironically, it was when I was in fourth grade, and I was on my fourth different elementary school, and I started to see that school was not designed for me as a student. It was designed for the adults in the school and not for me. And once I saw that, I started seeing all the cracks in the armor and how school was really not benefiting me. And the teachers were essentially just waiting for this punk kid to move on because he was obviously a high transiency student and he wasn't going to be around for a long time. And I wasn't, but it just reaffirmed this isn't for me. This is for them.
Johnny Lupinacci, you got some sense there, what Jethro said.
Yeah, man. It sounds familiar, although I wasn't a transient student. I was just when they were like, what do we do with this kid, man? It's like, and I didn't actually know I wanted to be a teacher till a lot later. And it kind of dawned on me that I had met some really great ones and I had a whole slew of not so great ones. And it kind of dawned on me, wow, I was working with youth and I was actually volunteer and then a parapro. And I thought, what, makes a huge difference when there's a teacher that kind of cares and gets it, like Jethro's gonna like unpack a little bit. Like when you start to vibe with the fact that learning isn't about control and compliance, it's about relationship, it's about connection, it's about recognize the diverse ways we all make sense of the world and we learn things together. And when that can be exciting and valued by both teachers and students, magic happens. And it's not even that magic, it's just what we do as humans. So it was really awesome. So similar as to Jethro, like kind of trial by fire, landed in this, calling and career.
Yeah, when we get back though, two more. Did you see the countdown, dude?
No, I didn't. You know what? I just had to realize that my chat wasn't open for some reason.
Okay. I'm like, Johnny's usually the one pushing me forward when the time's coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Jethro, do you
Johnny,
see
you
see
hear
the
music?
chat?
I can't because for some reason the work studio I'm in, someone's lent out all the headphones here. Like the interns have kind of pillaged the spot for the summer. So
All right,
I didn't
then
have,
we're just
so I
gonna-
had you turned down really low. I can hear the voices, but I can't hear the music so that it won't give feedback in the mic.
All right.
But I can see the chat now. It's just the way it looks on the screen. It wasn't showing the chats weren't updating.
Yeah, we went out on time still, so we're good.
Yeah.
Back in 10.
We got it back in 10 seconds. Yeah, so Jethro, we'll come right in with this and kind of like, okay, let's jump right into, okay, if learning's not this, talk to us about learning loss. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. Yeah, it's Thursday night. Our guest, Jethro Jones, educator, leader, podcaster, have been doing this stuff for over 20 years. The number is 855-752-4842. We'll definitely have that graphic. What does learning look like? Okay, Jethro, though, one of these things, if we admit that learning doesn't look like a gradual, continuous growth line that goes up forever, always going on, and it's confusing mess. It's all over these things. Man, Johnny and I have had this conversation, though. There are so many people out there right now really, really worried about learning loss. Like, particularly, we're hearing it that during the pandemic, kids lost learning. Johnny and I have challenged that. I think you want to challenge that. Tell us what's up with learning loss. Is it real? What do we do with it? How do we make sense of it?
Yeah, it's a lie, and it's a way for curriculum companies to sell more intervention materials and things like that. That's all it is. It's a way for legislators to put in more restrictions or to legislate schools from their perches where they don't really know what's going on. The thing is that there's no such thing as learning loss, and there's no such thing as a student being behind. Those are all constructs that we create as the adults to give words to how we think kids should or should not be doing. And the reality is that no kid can be behind because they are just where they're at. And we may think they should be somewhere else, but why do we think that? Well, we think that because some people did it this way, and that's what we expect. We think that because we have this idea that because we are teachers, we know what's right, and we really don't. We're just doing the best we can with what we got every single day. And this is where I want to bring in something that, I knew I'd forget her name. Nancy Carlson Page. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Matt Damon's
Okay,
mom.
Got it.
Matt Damon's mom. I listened to that podcast this week, and she was talking about how we don't actually know how the learning takes place in the mind. And we can say the synapses connect or whatever, but nobody really understands how to make that happen. And so all we're doing is making our best guess about it. So think about it this way. You can have 10 kids in a teacher's classroom. They're all paying the equal amount of attention and engaged in the same way. Because of their life experiences, they're going to take whatever the teacher says in a 5-minute lesson in their own unique way. That's what all those squiggly lines are. So if I have a background where I've helped my dad or my mom build something at home, and the teacher, it gives an example of measuring tape, what does that look like? I have a different relationship to that than the kid who got spanked by a ruler whenever they did something wrong the previous year. And so those things matter and they mean something. Now, that's not to say that we can't have any control over how kids learn or what they learn. What we need to do is start with that recognition. And here's the key. Every single kid's individual learning is the responsibility of themselves. Every adult's learning is a responsibility of themselves. Nobody but the learner cares what is going on, what that kid learns, how they learn it. None of that. It only matters to that individual kid. And so we put all these systems and pressures and plans in place to accomplish something that we can't possibly control or make sure that it happens the way we want it to. We can just try our best. And if teachers took that approach, that would be an awesome experience for them. And they would feel a lot better if they could take that approach and take all that stress off of their backs that they are responsible for these kids learning. They're just not.
Man, think about that, Johnny. It's making me have all these intersections of all the shows we've been doing so often. But, the connection last night to Educators Amplified and realizing, they come in to talk about this, Jethro, Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanna, about the reality of going like, look, first of all, if school is only about academics, that in and of itself could be a problem because you're not dealing with everything else. But boy, what you've talked about though too is recognizing where kids are is where they are, and assessing that. When I say assessing too, I don't mean measuring it. I mean kind of getting a guide and getting a sense of knowing where our kids are. The whole idea that the way you put this out there, you can't lose learning. It doesn't get lost. It's just there, Johnny, right? I mean, we've
Well, yeah, I
talked
love
about
it.
it.
I mean, we didn't prompt Jethro to say this, but we've been on the shows we had way back in the past. As soon as that phrase came up, learning loss. I mean, we were like, come on, here we go again with a new marketing slogan, a new ad campaign for selling curriculum, for like being able to, put that sense of failure into both students and to teachers and schools to say, well, you fell behind, you're not doing what you need to do. And here's the solution. Right. So, we've been saying that. So it's nice to have Jethro on saying that too. It's always fun when we agree. We don't stack the deck that way, as listener knows. It just kind of converges on this. And I love that idea of, Educators Amplify. They are on last night. They were talking about, there's some different ways to approach how we teach. And too often we're either teaching to or for our learners. And we need to be able to think about, how do we think about teaching with, being present with them as they are engaged as learners. And Jethro kind of, he's on tonight, listener, saying a very similar thing. We want to engage. Too much of school is about compliance and, measuring how compliant have you been. And that's not learning, right? That's not the kind of learning that we can trick ourselves into sometimes thinking it is. Kids look like they're learning. And especially, I don't know about you, Tim or Jethro, man, I wasn't good at pretending like I was learning, but I had a lot of peers who were really good at it. I mean, they just weren't in trouble as often because they appeared to be paying attention. But that's not learning. We know learning doesn't look the same way in every kid, even when there's some patterns. It's like it. I hate to say it's messy, but it is. It's a little bit messy,
and it's okay for it to be messy.
Yeah.
And because it is, whether we want it to be clean or not. Every individual's learning is messy for them. And so the way that I like to talk about this image also is that when you look behind you, you see that straight line of how you got there. But looking at it from any other direction, there's just no way. It's not like that at all. Let me give a quick illustration of what you were just talking about, Johnny, that I think is so powerful. So as I mentioned, I used to live in Russia. I was a missionary for my church there. It was really awesome. Did a lot of cool things. But one thing that I learned that was so amazing is how they talk about education. They say that the way that education works is that a teacher does not teach a subject. In fact, in the language, it's impossible to say that I teach math. They say I teach students to math, like they are physically taking the students to math, like they would take them on a field trip. Taking that different approach, that is powerful. When you think I take students to the content rather than I teach the content to the students,
boom. Whoa. Thinking about that is absolutely the most, really goes with the image. Our guest, Jethro Jones, teacher, leader, principal, podcaster, he's got it all. Yeah, we're kind of really looking at this. First of all, learning loss, sorry, can happen. When we get back, though, to Jethro, we're going to get into some of these. So if learning loss doesn't happen and learning is messy, then we need to figure out, what are we going to do? Busted Pencils, more when we get back.
Can't wait.
And Tim, cool. Jess is going to put the image up on the.
Yeah.
Oh, it's up in the corner. Tiny.
There it is.
Boom.
Boom.
That is. Do you need to have this kind of like trademarked or something?
I know, right? I did actually see someone else use something similar to it, and I was like, come on, buddy.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, and I don't know, there's just something uniquely special about the way this looks here. It just kind of, you look at it, and I think 90% of people go, oh my God, yeah, wow, holy crap. And if on the right is what's really happening, then all of a sudden the whole potential that somebody might go, oh yeah, wait, learning loss, that doesn't seem right.
And we got a comment on the the Twitter. Yep.
Oh, you got a comment on the Twitter, because we got Damon. Great discussion. Yeah, Damon Hargraves.
Oh, he's someone you should have on the show. Also, he is
okay.
He is brilliant.
Awesome. Do you know where he is?
Yeah, he was my assistant principal in Kodiak, Alaska.
Okay, cool. Is he still up there?
He is. Yep, he's a principal of an elementary school now.
Oh,
Awesome,
in Alaska too. Yeah, that'd be a great guest. So, Damon, if you're right now behind the scenes with us watching,
Yeah, if he's watching on the X, then he's
yeah.
catching this part for sure.
catching on the X for sure. So, let's get you lined up, do a little pre-interview, and get you on here. Talk some educated educators talking education. The learning loss thing one too. If you're familiar, Jethro, with Alfie Cohn's work,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, he kind of really more hit this from the standpoint, before the learning loss in the pandemic, it was always, the what do kids lose over the summer?
Mhm.
And
Also,
it was just like, sorry, they don't lose anything.
no, they don't. That's
Yeah.
deficit thinking. That's not helpful.
That's right. Yep.
And
There you go, Tim. Damon says he'll come on. All right, Damon, we
I
got
see
you,
that.
man.
Yeah, I see
Yes,
that.
We
man.
got you. We're gonna be reaching out, scheduling in Damon Hargraves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna appreciate that because he is awesome.
Love it.
Well, and that's the best thing too about doing the show. So many people get to meet so many awesome people. Phone app us. Oh, Joanne. Okay, cool. So thinking about, come in and do a little bit of learning loss. I have a feeling, I think that, Joanne will be on the phone. We'll hit her, Johnny, and then after her, you want to do the Scotty Summer.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Does
Okay.
Joanne call in all the time? Is she a regular?
She's she's a pretty good regular. She's a UW professor, artificial intelligence and
Cool.
robotics. Yeah, she's an awesome caller.
That's great.
What's great about Joanne too is she comes in, she's like gives you some context, lays it out, and then asks the question and goes, "Okay, now you guys answer, and I'm gonna listen."
Yeah, that's
She
awesome.
tees things up for you really great.
Doesn't she?
Yes.
She's
Yes.
It's like, Joanne, you plan these questions out.
Minute and a
Well,
half.
she's a thoughtful listener, man, and she's a good contributor. It's good it's
love
good
that.
communication. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We actually had her early on when we went to 5 days a week. We actually had her on as a full guest for a full show, really
Yeah.
talking about artificial intelligence. And she's got some great thoughts where she's really looking at, really this whole idea too of what it means to be particularly writing with AI, and kind of, Johnny, tell me if you think this is the way she's talked about it, is there a new genre emerging?
Yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting, the old, what does it mean to write with AI?
Well, I mean, like we make the comparison all the time about music, and it birthed electronic music and EDM and all that stuff. So I don't doubt it. I mean, that's what's going to happen
30
is
seconds.
the artistry of writing is going to take the tool and twist it and do really cool things with it, and we'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, it is cool. I'm starting to notice that 4.0, I'm not sure I'm as happy with 4.0 on its writing standpoint as much as I was with just
10
4.
seconds.
Oh yeah, see.
Maybe user error though, you never know.
Yeah.
Jess is on the music tonight. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Little Lincoln Park there. Number 855-752. Whoa, and then, sorry, I got cut out there. Busted Pencils. Yeah, we're here. Our guest, Jethro Jones, teacher, leader, principal, missionary. He's been out there just doing it. Podcaster, book author. You got it. I mean, we're out there talking about this whole idea of learning. It isn't what you think it is. It's quite messy. Taking a look at learning loss and going, yeah, sorry, just can't really have such thing as learning loss. Before we go any deeper, though, got Joanne on the phone, one of our favorite callers. Joanne, what's happening, our friend?
Great show. I have a question that is pretty tricky about learning engagement. Say you have a young boy, and the parents come to you and say, my young boy learns better with other boys and is more engaged with learning when with other boys. When that young boy is with girls, for whatever reason, maybe not as engaged. And what do you do with that type of a question? I mean, it's very, very practical. I have heard about it during some picnics I've attended lately. Do you put the young boy in an environment with other young boys, or just say, hey, maybe we got a little engagement of learning loss, but the young boy will learn how to deal with girls?
Jethro, that's
Great
all you, man.
Oh, I can't wait to dig into this. So, a couple different things. Number one, thank you, first of all, for caring enough about your kid to recognize that maybe things aren't going well when girls are around. That's wonderful. That's attention. Thanks for being a great parent. That is exactly what I would say. I'm also glad that you brought up the idea of engagement, because Damon Hargraves and he was my assistant principal in Kodiak, Alaska, and is someone I really admire and look up to. He and I would talk about engagement all the time, that you can be quote unquote engaged, but you're not actually enrolled, which when I had Seth Godin on my podcast, he called it being enrolled in school, that you have to choose and want to be there. And so the question is not about whether or not they are engaged in the learning process. It's, are they enrolled in the learning process? Are they choosing to participate and be engaged in it? And so if that is the case where a male student is struggling because there are girl students around, what do we need to do to help him figure out for himself how to regulate himself so that he can get done what he needs to get done? And it's the idea of he's in charge of his learning. And if we start from that perspective, we involve him in the process instead of saying, we're in charge of your learning, so we're going to put you in the right spot for learning. We need to talk with him and help him figure that out for himself, rather than take that responsibility on our shoulders and think that it's our responsibility to help him be regulated around all these cute girls that are very distracting.
Johnny Lupinacci, you took your hat off to that one, man.
Well, it's getting hot. It's getting hot in here, but I mean, I love it. Jethro, love his response. I mean, you could tell, seasoned vet here, a guy from the trenches of, good education in the midst of schooling. It's like kind of one of those, you go to your toolbox and a carpenter has, a great, a grasp of how to use a hammer, and Jethro's saying like, hey, love the engagement, love what you're noticing, because really important that you have, this learner has someone backing them on this. Yeah. However, there's different ways that we need to adjust and look. And so we got to be able to work with different people around us, because even though engagement and learning is individualized, no matter where we go, we're doing it in society in some context. And so we're balancing and practicing all those skills. And also good teachers out there, we have diverse ways we group our students together, to apply the social learning. Even when it's social learning, though, and I like Jethro points this out, that's a kind of engagement that individual learners are like, hey, I'm interested in this. I'm alert, I'm engaged, and I'm enrolled. Oftentimes because they have a high investment in what their peers are thinking and interacting with them. So sometimes I think we do push it too much to try and get the perfect configuration of who's sitting with who and who's learning. And so teachers, I encourage you, I think Jethro outlined this for us. I encourage you to kind of let it be messy. Let groups kind of form and flow and, facilitate them and, move them around and take note of when students work really well together and where they might need to work on how they work with others. But, that's a unique thing. And I love that caller Joanne brought it up. Thanks, Joanne, for listening thoughtfully and always contributing really great questions. Love it.
Yeah, and I got a great story after you read the thing you need to read about boys and girls working together and how they learned how to do it. So you take it away, Tim.
It's Johnny, man. To you, buddy.
Okay, well, I could take it away and we can get right back to it because I think it's nice. But we're going to sneak this in here because, listener, you know what time it is. It's Civic Media's Scotty Summers statewide text to win contest. It's on now through June 14th. Download the Civic Media app and listen throughout the day for a chance to hear codes to text in for a chance to win. New keywords are announced in the odd numbered hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's 7, 9, and 11 a.m., 1, 3, 5, and 7 p.m. So, listener, tune in to Nightlight after Busted Pencils with Pete Schwaba to hear the next code, which will be announced at the top of the 7 p.m. hour and will be valid through 7:59 p.m. Daily prizes include Wisconsin Dells prize packs and a pair of Milwaukee Brewers club level tickets. Enter for your chance to win a grand prize Scotty getaway in Door County, Lake Geneva, or Fort Atkinson. All right, now we got that done so our listeners can win some contests with Jethro. Come back to that great story, my man.
All right. So we were doing this thing at my middle school in Fairbanks, Alaska, that we called Synergy. What Synergy was is time outside of the classroom. So not in a content area where kids could work on something that would improve the world that they lived in. And they could define, it was solve a problem in the world. They could define problem, they could define world, and they could figure out what that solution looked like. So these young women got together and said, we want to teach soccer, cheer, and volleyball to second and third grade girls at the elementary school next door. Yeah. As they're doing this, they're saying, you know what? We feel like boys need to learn these skills also. So we want to involve the boys, but we're already maxed out. So they found a bunch of boys who they thought would be good athletic boys to help them teach the other boys. They brought these boys into their group, and then they realized that these boys were just messing everything up because they weren't focusing. They were distracted, like just what Joanne was talking about. So they came to me and they said, how do we fire these boys without making them feel like they are terrible human beings? They have no value, because they do, but it just isn't going to work for what we're trying to do. Now, think about that for a moment. What 7th and 8th grade girl is going to be that aware of what it means to fire someone if we're just teaching the curriculum? There's just no way. But these girls understood that this was their responsibility, this was their project, and we were just the guides and the mentors there for them. That's what they understood. And so they asked the right question. Then they fired the boys. And most adults don't know how to fire people effectively, but they fired them in a way where the boys walked away saying, okay, we get it. You make sense. We'll go find a different project to join. I mean, talk about a powerful learning experience driven by them, focused on what they needed in the moment. And now for the rest of their life, they know how to fire people with compassion and care.
Well, that's the part though, too. Yeah. The whole learning that took place there, Jethro, as you said, not only does learning, is it messy and it looks like this, and then sometimes though, what is it that we're learning? You go, oh, wait, they learned that? Oh my, who knew?
Is there a state standard for how to fire people effectively? I don't think so, but it sure is a good skill to have.
Oh, the ability to, just you said, from an empathetic standpoint for the whole reason, thinking of somebody going, oh, I get why I'm going to move on to something else now. It's, I'm not a bad person. I didn't do anything, but I just realized this. So yeah, what a great way to illustrate that. So Jethro, take that then though too, and say, okay, so that moment, which was essentially unscripted, right? The reality though is that more and more, in fact, more and more, the heavy emphasis on dictated scripted lessons is just the reality teachers are facing. How do they kind of take moments like that and really plan more of these, learning opportunities that are outside of the bounds of the dictates?
Yeah, that is a real challenge for sure. And my heart breaks for anybody who has a principal who's in your room checking to make sure you're following the script. That's a terrible situation to be in. I was a principal that had that in our building, and I just never went into that classroom where the scripted lessons were happening, because I didn't want the teacher to have that as her demo lesson, and I didn't want to emphasize or enforce that any more than it already was being done. So the key is finding those opportunities to teach kids to be good, flourishing human beings wherever you can, and pulling those kinds of things in. I was just at a conference this last week and asked a room full of principals and teachers, what's more important, how the kids feel or the content that you actually learn. And one of the speakers gave a whole talk about this thing. And they said, everybody raised their hand and said, we think it's more important that kids know we love them, that we care about them, that they become good people. Everybody agrees with that, but we don't act that way. Just like learning is the learner's responsibility, your profession, your career is your responsibility, and you need to stand up and say, this is not okay when things are not okay. You need to have the courage to do that. And it can be scary, but it's worth it to take the effort to say the things that need to be said.
Man, I just think about that. The whole idea, though, too, if you're scripted, I know there are some teachers listening right now who are facing the fact that actually tomorrow, they're going to have to follow the script. And in fact, depending on where they are and depending on the principal and the leadership in the school district, I mean, some of that is going to be very top down, and some of the teachers are going to be like, man, where can I get me a principal like Jethro Jones? Because I know tomorrow morning that not only am I going to have to be on the script, I'm going to be on the clock, I'm going to be on the script, and my kids better be making sure that their pencils are sharpened the right way, because if they get me off script and off the timing, the principal's going to come down on me. Just the way I just described that, right, Jethro? You just think it's going like, really? Do we do that to people? Yeah, we do.
Unfortunately. And the other thing about that is that in order to make that synergy time happen, I had to take it out of the classroom, because we had tried it earlier where they were in the language arts or the math classroom and the teachers wouldn't let go of their content area. So I had to literally make a time in the schedule for synergy that was not focused on any kind of particular content area, to be able to have that flexibility so the teachers could finally relax and not feel like, well, I have kids in my math classroom, I have to teach math. No, that's not what this time is for. And I had to redesign the schedule to make it so that that was possible. You want to know the crazy thing? This is wild, blow your mind. Our students did better on all of their assessments.
There you go.
After we implemented this program, MAP scores went up, state test scores went up, individual grades went up. Kids who were total punks before are now like focused and dedicated and doing the right thing. Just incredible.
Love it. Jethro Jones, man, you are busting pencils truly with us.
It.
We're gonna, man, I hate to let you go, but it sounds like you hooked us up with another next guest, and it sounds like this is a return invitation. Jethro, people who want to find more,
don't be shocked if you see me and Jethro sitting next to each other on one of these videos soon, Tim.
That's right.
Where can people find you, Jethro?
Yeah, I'm at Jethro Jones on all the social networks. So at Jethro Jones on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. TikTok's a little different, but I don't post there much. So, but at Jethro Jones, would love to connect with anybody. And I took a bunch of notes and put links in my Twitter off of this episode right here. So if you go there right now, they're up at the top.
Awesome. Jethro Jones, thanks for busting pencils, man. Tim and Johnny break it down when we get back. Nice. Jethro, thank you so much, man.
Oh, my pleasure. This is awesome. I love this, doing it live. This is really cool.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, Jess, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Jethro. We'll be in touch, man. Let's connect.
Yeah, let's be in. I'm gonna definitely reach out too and get back, because we got a lot of work to do. And the fact that you mentioned Seth Godin and enrollment, man, we got to talk, because he's one of my heroes.
Yeah, did you know I had him on my podcast?
I heard you say that, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, hold on, how do you do that?" So we got to talk.
Story there. Yeah,
good. We got to talk about that. All right, Jethro, thanks, man. All you just need to click out.
Okay, and I put my
I see your
Johnny.
Yeah, I got you, man. I'm gonna shoot you a text.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll see you
later, man.
Thank you, Jethro.
Bye.
Good stuff, man. You got a new neighbor, Johnny. Well, you're not new neighbor. You're not new neighbors. You just now know your neighbors. Well, because when he said that, though, I had, for some reason, too, hadn't made. Ah, there it is. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. The number 855-752-4842. Great guest, Johnny Lupinacci, Jethro Jones, leader, author, podcaster. The whole idea, though, the concept, learning is messy, right? How long? I mean, we know this.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it, man. Great conversation tonight. Awesome to meet another, what I call kind of just a ride or die educator right there in the trenches, grinding it out and recognizing and cued into how young people learn, really diverse ways. Like, this isn't linear. It's also not neat and tidy and about putting them in rows, and we had a great comment come up from Damon Hargraves, who's going to be a guest. I mean, we booked him while we were on this show. That's a first and an awesome thing. But Damon had the comment: threat of engagement versus actual engagement. And this is a big pet peeve of mine. And he gives a perfect example. This practice, so I'll call it schooling, and I always say school seeps in. And I said, it happens to all of us. So it's not like some kind of like elitist, hey, I'm a really great educator, and when I observe you, I'm going to find all these mistakes. We all sometimes slip into those habits of schooling that we were socialized into. We probably experienced them when we were students. But he gave the example, drawing popsicle sticks to call on students versus providing a platform for learning that draws students in. And I think that's a really good illustration for listeners to kind of get at this kind of like engaged and enrolled that Jethro was talking about and that Damon's commenting out. We probably were all in classrooms where there is a popsicle stick drawn, and this happens in a lot of classrooms around our country. So I'm not picking on you if you're a teacher and you do this, but it's the difference, and it's a really good example. That is about compliance, and most people are more focused on the stick and if they're going to get drawn than on the learning. And so it's more about a high pressure performance than it is about being engaged as a learner. And then the alternative, having a forum and a habit and a practice of participating that isn't about getting permission or getting called on in a gotcha kind of system by a teacher, but kind of like we talked about earlier, Tim. I joked before the show, I said, we're kind of like a jam band. We get in and we read from one another, and we have a conversation that's based around active listening and kind of eye contact. That's the kind of thing that great teachers are out there working to do as often as they can. And I just want to point it out. Thank you, Damon. He's commenting too. So true. But we've all been there, right? School seeps in, and those practices that are around, I love the language, the threat of engagement, the threat versus actually being engaged. That's really also what Educators Amplified was talking about last night, right? They were like, instead of being the teacher that teaches to or does for students, right, they're going through the window and teaching with. That is the same kind of thing. Those two concepts are vibing. There's resonance, there's harmony in that style of teaching, right? So I love it, man. I love when the themes in Busted Pencils just start to really make music together. And that's what's happening this week with some great guests, Tim. So
yeah, it is the man. You to hear Jethro too. He made that comment. Regulated. I was like, oh man, there we go. Teacher Hallie and Teacher Joanne. I know they're out there listening, going, wait, what a minute, wait. Gotta love that. Hey,
mount up.
Yeah, check it out though. Hey man, make sure you tune in though too later on tonight to Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. You can hear that 7 p.m. code for your chance to win. Make sure you're out there. And Johnny, right?
Speaking of winning, Tim, I mean, Busted Pencils is winning because Busted Pencils is lucky to be sponsored by Minocqua Brewing Company, who sued the state of Wisconsin to end its parasitic voucher system that hurts public schools. Minocqua Brewing Company is making Wisconsin great again, one beer at a time. Check out MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to see where you can buy their progressive beer.
Progressive beer, man, that sounds like it even just tastes better,
I mean, it sounds like it belongs together with the Scotty summer.
Yeah, the Scotty summer. You get there. Hey, you know what, too? What makes that Scotty summer even easier to do? Download the Civic Media app, because when you have that Civic Media app, you can do all of that. Hey, and like we said, though, too, and if you happen to be in Finland, you can always listen to Busted Pencils when you got that Civic Media app, like our friends in Finland do right now, Johnny Lupinacci, right?
Yeah. And we got a great text in from Jameson, but I know we're running out of time tonight, Tim, but I want to sneak it in because Jameson in Pennsylvania, I mean, he comes in right on time. We're talking about making music, right? He's right in the cut. He said, it comes down to this. It's how we were taught to do things. As a restaurant manager, my district leader sat down with me and asked, why do you do X? He hated the phrase, it's always the way we do it. He broke me hard that day, but since then, I look at everything, even if it's ingrained, to look at it a different way. Good night, pencils. Hey, good night, Jameson. Jameson, thanks for sharing that. I mean, that's what all of us are learners, leading learners, especially for an education. We are all learning. We have those moments where we're learning and love it. Jameson, thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing.
Yeah.
Ooh, Tim,
Man,
what a night.
That's good stuff. Jess, even Jess has got that look of going like that. Some good stuff happening here tonight, right, Jess?
You guys are making my job of selecting the best of segments so difficult. I mean, keep it up. But wow, it is so hard to pick the best of segments from this week.
Hey, you know what they say? It's always good to have a good problem, right? It's good to have a good problem. Busted Pencils, though, fully leaded education talk. Yeah, we had a great guest tonight, Jethro Jones. Check him out. All the social medias at Jethro Jones. The whole idea, what does learning look like? We had that graphic up there for those of you watching on the X, on Facebook, and YouTube, different places. We'll have that graphic, too, available when the podcast is out there, too, so that everybody can get it. Just a great graphic. Again, what does learning look like? It doesn't look like a straight, continuous, upward growing, ever wonderful line. It's messy, it's squiggly, it changes, it goes upwards, it goes downwards, it goes sideways, it changes colors, it does all those things, because learning is messy. The big thing too here, Johnny, what he said is, guess what? Reaffirmed too, Dr. Nancy Carlson Page, Matt Damon's mom. Guess what? For all those people who think we know what learning looks like inside our craniums, behind our skulls, in those brains, we don't. We have theories, we have things that are going there. So anybody who's telling you it's based on brain research, bull. Busted Pencils, fully leaded. Tomorrow night, man. TGI BPF. Thank God it's Busted Pencils Friday. See y'all tomorrow.
Let's go. Hey, man. I'm going next week.